This morning, an in-depth conversation with Governor Kathy Hochul. She was in the studio with me yesterday. We talked about a lot of different topics, including how she's pushing for the needs of the city and the state with Donald Trump back in the White House. And we talked about the governor's proposal to take phones out of the hands of students during the school day.
We're not developing the skills we need because kids are distracted with the cell phones. And how hard it is for our teachers trying to teach algebra and geography. And they're competing with viral dances and messages from their friends and sometimes threats, bullying. How do you pay attention to the subject at hand when this is going on? It didn't happen when we were younger.
That was the governor's speech a few weeks ago. Today, the governor's smartphone ban getting an endorsement from one of the city's biggest technology nonprofits, Tech NYC, which represents some of the social media companies, AI companies, tech companies. The governor was joined for our interview by the Tech NYC president and CEO, Julie Samuels. I started by asking what the governor's been hearing from parents and teachers and students when it comes to the distraction that phones cause.
I went on a journey about a year ago to go around the state, convening roundtables with students and parents and administrators, principals, and just asking what is going on here, because we're seeing very high rates of depression, suicidal thoughts among our teenagers. And part of it is still the aftermath of the pandemic, I believe, but also that was the rise of social media algorithms that are addictive. And kids are just not being kids again. They don't communicate in schools. And the one child that said to me, "You've got to save us from ourselves. We can't put them down ourselves." I'm a mom, New York's first mom governor. When you say that to me, you save us from ourselves. I'm like, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm going to help you.
But this initiative is just talking about school hours.
I can only control school hours, but I really can. You know, when you think about the data that just came out of a 6.5-hour school day, 25% of it, the kids are on schools on cell phones on average. That's an hour and a half that they're not paying attention. And teachers are so frustrated. They're not making a connection with the children that they're supposed to develop a relationship with. And kids are not even communicating with other kids anymore. So something is happening. It's very negative, and we can do something about it right here in New York.
Julie, obviously you represent the tech industry. You want people to have a relationship with technology, but just not this particular relationship?
That's right. We want people to have a healthy relationship with technology. And the vast majority of tools that technology companies are producing now are just that. They're tools. They can be used well, they can be used poorly. There's enormous opportunity that comes with, for instance, mobile phones, but there are also challenges. And we think that for all of the reasons the governor just put out, they shouldn't be in school while kids are in class. They shouldn't be in school when kids should be talking to parents. When kids should be talking to teachers and to their classmates.
Speaking of talking to parents, this has been one of the concerns expressed is, I want to be in touch with the student. What do you see as other ways around that? What could, if the cell phones are locked up, and a parent needs to reach a student, how does that happen?
Well, I think this is one of the things that is actually so great about the governor's proposal, is that it doesn't mandate specific ways to execute the policies. Every school district, different parts of the state, different parts of the city will figure out what works best for them. So you can have all kinds of processes in the school. When I was growing up, you went to the office and used the phone.
Julie, that's what we're talking about, is every school is required to have a policy to put parents' minds at ease. If your child left their lunch at home, or if you need to tell them something has changed with their after-school pickup, of course there's an office. Every school is going to have information out to parents on how to connect with your child. But one thing I have to address, the fear that parents had that if something happened with a school shooting or something bad is happening on their school grounds, I need to be in touch with my child. And that was my first thought as a mom. But when I talk to people in law enforcement, prosecutors, police officers, district attorneys who say, no, if there's something in a classroom, a shooter is in the hallway, the last thing you want is your child distracted by contacting mom and dad, doing videos of it, talking to their friends. You need them focused on the adult in the room who's trained to get them to safety. That's when they had me. I said, I get it. This is about the safety of our kids as well.
You feel you have legislative support for this?
I'm working hard. I have the New York State Teachers Association on board, so teachers want this to happen because 74% of them surveyed said it is too frustrating. We're not able to teach our children the way we used to be able to because we're competing with this. And also, parents who are in schools and principals who've gone ahead, the principals tell us we're starting to hear kids' voices again. We didn't hear them in lunchrooms and in gym class and in the hallways because they're so addicted to looking at their hand. They're not having normal interpersonal connections with students, their colleagues and classmates, and that has a negative effect on them as adults. We want to have a fully functioning workforce for the jobs that Julie represents. We want them to have young people who are used to working together and not in silos, just connected to a device on their hand. So this is going to be good.
You got to know when to put it down too. Julie, thank you for coming in this morning.
Much.
Governor Hochul is going to stay with us, and we'll continue our conversation with some of the news about the Republican reality in Washington and how New York State is contending with change. Governor Hochul still with us after our conversation a few minutes ago about her push to ban cell phones in schools across the state. I want to move on to some of the other stories in the news. Probably a dozen different stories that come to mind based on actions by the Trump administration. How are you balancing all of these executive orders and trying to make sense of what it means to New York State?
You know, Pat, that's an excellent question, because I said I'm not going to play whack-a-mole that every time something comes out of the administration that we have to comment or react or have a protest. What I need to do is keep governing the state of New York. When there is an issue that has a direct impact on the lives of New Yorkers, I will engage, something like tariffs.
Wait, it's hard not to react to that with some degree of alarm, because there's such a, particularly across the Canadian border, there's such a high degree of trade with New York.
Of course there is. I mean, it's a $50 billion trade relationship. Canada's our #1 trading partner. And you think about the communities of Western New York, where I'm from, Buffalo, and the relationships we have there all the way up to the North Country, manufacturing the subway trains. French companies, Canadian companies out of Quebec are working with us to get the aluminum across the border to build our infrastructure and our trains. So the synergy is incredible. And to think that New Yorkers, at a time when I'm working so hard to reduce costs and put money back in people's pockets, and with a middle-class tax cut and inflation rebates and child tax credits, I have a plan to put $5,000 back in the pockets of families. At the same time, if it costs go up $3,500 a year because of the cost of everything going up because of the tariffs, now we're hurting New Yorkers. And energy costs, we get a lot of energy from Canada. We truly do. People don't realize that. And if they're talking about an additional surcharge of 10% or higher on energy, that's going to hit the pocketbooks of New Yorkers. That's where I have to engage in this and let people know loudly that we cannot let this happen and get into a trade war with Canada. And I'll work with the administration on areas where they want to help New York. But when you're going to hurt the people I represent, I've got to stand up.
You're coming into the budget process in Albany. It's always a moment when you see what the priorities of the legislative leaders are versus the priorities of your administration. Where are you seeing alignment and where are you seeing differences right now?
We're getting closer on public safety. I have long said that our #1 job in government is to protect citizens, whether it's on the subways, and I'm really proud that subway crime is down 35 to 40% since last year. That is huge. It could have gone up that much, and part of it comes from the investments I'm willing to make from the state to help cover the cost of overtime and put cameras on every train and barriers on platforms. So the legislature sometimes is, we've not always seen eye to eye.
No, they've not always been inclined to be tough on crime.
No. And we fund the police. We don't defund the police. We support law enforcement. And we also make sure we have, justice for people who are defendants. Of course, that's who we are. But also, it is swung too far. We have to have justice for victims as well. So money for law enforcement, changing the discovery laws where so many cases have been thrown out. A prosecutor builds a case working with the police, someone has done something, but on a technicality, it gets thrown out. We've got to fix that. So I'm working with the legislature to try and help them understand that this is about protecting the citizens that sent them to office in any of the boroughs or anywhere else in the state of New York, but also on affordability. I believe there'll be a lot of alignment with my policies to put money back in people's pockets. Again, I mentioned a middle-class tax cut, the largest in 70 years. And also just trying to say, you paid so much because of high inflation, let's give that money back to you with $500 checks. So I think there'll be intense discussions on the public safety side as always. I'm committed to getting it done, but also there'll be a lot of agreement and alignment on the affordability agenda.
We're a month into the congestion pricing toll. I'm frequently cautioned that it's too early for anybody to be declaring it a success or a failure. But the indications are good.
Yes, they are.
Anecdotally, people are saying that their commute is faster. You look around in Manhattan and traffic doesn't seem to be locked up in quite the way it was. Are you happy with the way things have gone?
I believe they're trending better than even people could have expected. Again, not backed up by data quite yet because I need a longer time frame to judge this. But I speak to people all the time. I was just in a diner before I came here. I live in the city 3, 4, 5 days a week. I have an apartment. I walk the streets of New York all the time. I can see myself that there has been a change. But just even coming across the Holland Tunnel, you're getting through 48% quicker. Midtown, crosstown, it's either 6%, depending on the time of day, or 26%.
Has it occurred to you that had you left it at $15, the benefits would have even been better?
I think a lot of people would have stayed home. That was always the fear I had, was balancing the people who can work remotely, telling their boss that unless you pay me enough money to cover this cost, I'm staying home.
So you're still comfortable with the shift to $9?
I think if we had to get it down 40%, this was a big price tag for a lot of New Yorkers, and I think we found the sweet spot. We're not hitting New Yorkers as hard as they would have been hit, because I don't want to hurt New Yorkers. I'm trying to put money back in their pockets. But also, we want to suppress the number of vehicles coming in. It's good for the environment, which is really important to me. It's good for safety. The number of accidents is down, particularly pedestrian accidents, down dramatically. But also, I need the money to invest in what is the lifeline of this entire region, our subway system. Yeah. So we'll have the resources we need. I figured out a way to do it all.
So the president has made some noise about congestion pricing. You had conversations last week with Donald Trump about congestion pricing. What is your sense of his view on this? Will he try to stand in the way of it?
You know, time will tell. He has a lot of people trying to influence him to eliminate it. He does have enormous power. Of course, he's the president. There's different ways to do this, but I have to be able to convince him, and I'll do my best. No guarantees here, but to say, you are from Manhattan, Mr. President. You know you have towers here with your name on it. Having people be able to come to the city without the congestion, the paralyzing congestion that makes the productivity go down and the cost of deliveries go up, the time that is wasted. I want to just be able to explain to him the benefits of this. And also, if we don't have the $15 billion that will be derived from this over time to make the investments in whether it's signalization or expanding services and making them safer on the subway, then will the federal government make up for that? Will you make up for the $15 billion shortfall that we are going to be deriving from congestion pricing? So all I'll say is the door is open to have that conversation, which is important, but I cannot make a prediction on the outcome.
Do you believe that the president has enough legal authority that he could get in the way of congestion pricing, or did the moment for the federal government to block this pass already?
I do not believe they do. I believe that this is set. It's been established. All the requirements of the federal government were met. We have the approvals signed, sealed, and delivered. But on the other hand, who knows?
Oh, yes, there's a lot in these last couple of weeks.
I will fight to keep it because I believe it is having the desired effect. And the people who have been so critical. You know, a man from Rockland County told me that I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to get to my job. I now wake up at 5:30.
So he likes it now.
So
he likes the toll.
I can't say everybody. I understand it. But if you're a regular commuter, either you're now on the subway and you're saying, I'm getting around fast. There's express buses, or many more people taking express buses. But if you're still driving in, it's not taking you as long to get where you want to go anymore. And that is probably worth it.
Governor Hochul, thanks for coming in this morning.
Always great to see you, Pat. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.